Welcome to I Heart Geek.
And welcome to a supplemental episode of I Heart Geek. This is one of our fun episodes. I love doing these. I get to meet somebody new, and we get to talk to somebody new that's doing some pretty amazing things, especially in the podcast field right now. Let's start with the person we know. I'm Dub, and then the other person we know. How are you doing, Satomi?
Hey, everybody. I'm Satomi Hoffman, hanging out with you. I'm very happy that I get to bring my buddy over here from Foul Players Radio in Baltimore. Yes, Baltimore. No, you're not supposed to pronounce the T.
Baltimore?
There's a couple of different ways you can pronounce it. There's Balmer. Some people say Balmore or Baltimore, like it's bald instead of
it
Balt.
Could be.
Oh,
like Baltimore.
But I'm sorry. We have to actually introduce this fine fellow. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mike Spedden of the Foul Players Radio podcast. Welcome,
Well, thank
Mike.
you.
Thank you, screen and music.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you both so much. It's great to be with you today. I've enjoyed listening to some of your shows too, and I've gotten to know Satomi since we have the same manager over the last few months. She's been a guest on my show several times. And I'm glad to be here because she told me about this and I listened and I love it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, I mean, it was so much fun being on the show with you. Actually, most recently, we touched on my favorite time of year, which is Halloween. Yes.
Yeah.
And actually,
you guys did go more depth than we did. I got to say that.
Yeah, we certainly did. And I'll tell you, one of the cool things, Dub, I don't know if you know this about Mike, but Mike actually has been a performer up at Kim's Crypt. You want to tell us a little bit about Kim's Crypt and what you did up there, Mike?
Oh, certainly, yes. I've known Kim Yates for about 32 years. I'm an old musician, and Kim is as well. We met each other back in the 80s. She's a drummer for a band called Scarlet Angel. And for just about all that time, absolutely. For just about a couple of years, say since maybe 92, she's been doing haunts. They started in her house. And now they've grown and grown and grown and grown. And now she has a 62-acre property in Spring Grove, PA, with 6 attractions.
Wow. I didn't realize there were 6.
Oh, yes. It's huge. It's huge. And she also has campouts in the summertime twice a year where campers go through a whole bunch of voluntary torture, like obstacle courses. And you can do all kinds of things to win points. And then when you go to sleep, you have some options for nighttime. You can just go into a section where you sleep and nobody messes with you. You can watch horror movies and eat marshmallows over the fire and s'mores, or you could be in an anything goes type area where creatures from the haunt can abduct you and take you into the woods and do things.
So it's very much a Camp Crystal type thing from
Yes, it is. It is. And
that's a great concept.
Oh yeah, Kim is just amazing, and she has a great group of people working for her, all very creative, and she has some folks that are actually building these sets and these parts of the attraction, so the floor shakes when you walk through. And,
no way.
Oh, yes.
Nice.
I actually had those guys on as an episode, Jason Winger and Jerry West. It was an early episode of Foul Players Radio, if you ever want to hear it. But those guys they think of everything.
Yeah.
When it comes to building these haunts and the attractions that are out there. And I got to be my big, gigantic, scary self.
Y'all got to check out the pictures.
How big are you?
I'm 6'6".
You're 6'6".
Oh my gosh! I never realized you were that tall.
Why this is important? If you're watching on YouTube, you might recognize him from somewhere, and you don't know where. There's 2 spots you would have really known him from, but I'm going to give you the one that you probably did, and he's a big Viking on a commercial. I think that's J.G. Wentworth, or
J.G. Wentworth, yeah.
So tell me about this whole process and becoming a Viking, getting on that commercial.
Yeah, well, I went to the audition. It was right after I filmed Gotham. It was right around Christmas time of 18. I went to the audition right after I finished filming my episode of Gotham, and I went in and they had groups of us in there lip syncing, and there was a whole bunch of guys that actually showed up dressed in like complete Viking outfits and everything.
At the
And
audition, they showed up
yeah,
full
they did.
Viking.
They did. They showed up
Nice.
full Viking at the audition, and I didn't know, how that was going to go. I just did the best I could, and
Yeah.
I got the call, and our manager was in Italy at the time, so I was calling Italy, I guess, in the middle of the night, just
Oh
to talk
boy.
to her to make sure I was doing everything correctly when I was speaking to the people that cast.
Mhm.
And so I ended up, booked it, and we filmed it in Stamford, Connecticut in January of 19, like right after New Year's Day.
Uh-huh.
And it was just a wonderful experience. I got up there and everybody was really friendly. And I've actually had, I think, about 4 of the people that were in the cast on my podcast as guests, because they're
Nice.
all working actors
Mhm.
of stage and television and everything.
Mhm.
So I was a little bit nervous when I got there, because I went back to my car to get something, and I heard some production people saying, "Did you see how tall he was? How's this going to work?" And
Vikings
that
were big.
concern,
Just
yeah. Well, that's actually my nationality too.
I can see that.
Yeah,
Casting call for the Norsemen, y'all.
yeah, that's it.
We got to
Well,
get
there's
you on
one-
that show.
There's one more season of Vikings coming out. Just saying.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a little old to play for the Minnesota Vikings, but
They have a
I-
team still? Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I got up there, and the thing is that when I stand, if I give you perfectly straight, I'm as tall as the inside of a city bus, from the floor to the ceiling.
Jeez.
I mean, I can stand, my head touches the ceiling. So
Oh.
those horns were an additional 8 inches high. Plus, there was lighting
Mhm.
and microphones and stuff up in the ceiling. So when I came in, when you see me come into the shot, I'm coming in from behind the girl who's up front, who's on her
Mhm.
phone, and she sang the first part. I kind of have to like come in and go around her and come right up into the shot.
Right.
And the way that it worked was because they had to kind of keep me hidden until that time came in. So I stood down in the doorway, the little steps that lead to the doorway. And then I had to kind of come in and take a step back, take a long step sideways and back and in and around, and just come right up to the screen. And I got to
So
tell
you
you
were
something.
like in a lunge.
I was in let me tell you something. You talk about a buns of steel workout. By the end of that day, I got to tell you, I mean, my legs felt like jello, and I really got a good, gluteal and hamstring workout.
Could have been on a rap video after that. I'm just sorry. Help it.
It's like I say, every time I take a break from the show and I come back, it's my rear end sort of crawls up back on my back because we just got so many stairs.
That's the weirdest visual I think you've ever given me. I'm actually seeing your butt crawl up your back. It's
it's like it was The Price is Right with the yodeler. He just sort of
Sorry, we get sidetracked a lot here on this show. So you being in the show business and you're a tall guy, has that been a help, hindrance, or I know in the music career it's a bit different, but as far as like the regular show business stuff, has that been anything to you?
Well, it does make a difference sometimes because you're either right for the part or you're not, and I have gotten parts. Like in Gotham, I was in there as Muscle for the Penguin, because I was like a foot taller than him. I've got a good height story about him too, as a matter of fact. Robin Lord Taylor. I got there to the set, and in my episode, I played Dale, and the way Oswald the Penguin described me was big, dumb, and mute, or mute and dumb as a post. Okay, and
fun part to play.
Yep, and I think he's probably about 5'7". So when we were waiting to make,
I thought he was taller.
Yeah,
you're killing my Hollywood thing. Yeah.
TV actors are usually small.
Yeah,
it's shifting a little bit, but they're usually small.
Yeah. Now the Riddler, Corey Michael Smith is pretty tall. I think he's over 6 foot, definitely. I don't know exactly how much, but he's a pretty tall guy. But so when we were making our entrance, the entrance is coming into the Riddler's laboratory, or Ed Nigma's laboratory. So we come in, and there's like these two French doors that he opens, and I come in behind him, and I had to look like a big, goofy, dumb thug guy. So they gave me, ill-fitting clothing where my sleeves were up, and I'm carrying this tray about chest high with a dumb look on my face. So when we were waiting to come in and we were doing rehearsals, I was holding the tray kind of in preparation to go in, and he turned around and he was right at nose level with the food that was on the tray. And on the tray, they actually had real food instead of prop food. They had this smelly type of cheese. They had open cans of sardines and anchovies.
Oh, boy.
And
I'm glad I already ate before this. Okay, good.
Oh, boy. Oh, God. This sounds great. It's really
under
the
hot
grapes
lights.
are okay.
Grapes. So he turned around to say something to somebody behind us, and when he turned around, his nose was like whoop, right there on the tray. And like I'm looking at him, and he's looking up at me, and I'm looking down at him, and he goes, "Oh man, God!" And then I started laughing. He says, "Do you eat this?" And I said, "Well, yeah, man. Like once a year, I'll get a can of sardines or something."
Because you're a
but
Viking.
It's not.
You gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's not every day, but I eat it, and I do like anchovies on pizza once in a while, so it's not unusual for me. But hey, like you said, I'm a Viking, so
I respect it. It's not my jam, but I respect. Have you ever had that stinkiest food in the world? I forget it. It's like it comes in a can. Yeah, it's like a what do you call it? They do that to pickles and stuff. It's like this. It's not
pickled herring.
But it's no. I'm going to look it up because there's actually a really funny video online of people trying it for the first time, and
it sounds horrific.
Most of them are dry heaving the whole time. And I believe it's Norwegian or Viking
fish.
No,
that's different.
No, see, now I'm going to have to look
that
it
sounds
up.
like it could be a Scottish food, because all Scottish food is based on a dairy. You ever eat haggis?
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
That's another one of my nationalities too.
Oh, you're a Scotsman?
I'm learning a lot about you right now.
I love the Scots.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get her started. You start saying any nationality, she starts doing the accent. It's amazing.
I mean, Mike gets it. We're actors here. And you know what it is? It's just fun to make the noises with your mouth.
It is.
It is fun. Even if you're bad at it, it's just fun.
Oh, I'm terrible, but I have a blast.
Yes.
Don't agree too much to tell me.
Well, you know me, Dove. It's all love, but you're right. You're right. You're terrible at it. But,
wow!
So Mike, I had a question for you. Last time that we chatted, one of the first things you said is you didn't realize you were a geek until you started listening to our show. And
yes.
So what I'm curious about, because to us, geekdoms are anything that you're passionate about, that you're obsessive about. I was wondering if you would share one or a couple or several. I know we don't have time for all of them, but a couple of your geekdoms with us, and what makes you a geek about those things.
Okay. Let me see here. Iron Maiden.
Did you run to the hills?
Sorry. Yeah, a huge, especially the first 5 or 6 albums. Rush, and any mostly British heavy metal from the mid to 70s to mid 80s.
Nice.
I'm really into, especially Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Saxon, and actually like mostly the European stuff.
We're really into Viking.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask this: what is it that makes you obsess over that era of metal? What is it about it that just like yes? I mean, I get it, but just for you.
I'm also a bass player, and I love Steve Harris, and I just love how his playing would just drive a song. And the twin guitars coming in, both guitarists, kind of weaving in and out of solos, trading back and forth. I do like both eras of Iron Maiden with both Di'Anno and Bruce Dickinson, Paul Di'Anno and Bruce Dickinson singing. They were both good, I think. I don't like. I'm not as crazy of Bruce Dickinson singing the Paul Di'Anno songs.
Yeah.
But I do like those. The first Iron Maiden album was raw, but I do like it. But the rest of them, from Killers on out, I just really, really enjoyed. They just, for some reason, they just kind of grabbed me when I was a young kid, and I just, couldn't really, I don't really know how to explain it. So like that era of heavy metal, I'm kind of a geek about. I also like a lot of, I'm a big Twilight Zone geek.
Oh, we've done several shows. I love Twilight Zone.
I
What's your favorite episode?
Oh gosh, there's so many of them. I like the one To Serve Man is good.
Oh yeah,
it's a classic.
I liked Mr. Dingle the Strong.
Okay,
the one with it was there was one with Darren from Bewitched when he could hear everybody.
Love that episode with the quarter.
The quarter landed on the edge.
A Nick of Time, I believe that one was called.
Yes.
I love too much of a geek about that.
I love the one with Ed Wynn. He wanted to do his last sales pitch with Murray Hamilton, and
yes,
I think that was the second episode. I just really liked because that was an era back then where there was like a big fear of nuclear war. There was the beginning of the Cold War, and then there was also a lot of themes in that with science fiction, the space travel and time travel.
Lots of aliens.
Yes, and a lot of and then there was always like a moral story. It was almost like that show was a series of fables.
Yeah, it was
really
so well designed in that show. And I mean, Rod Serling. I mean, you've heard me on the show. I've talked about him. He was just brilliant. Not the best human being, but he could get the best performance out of any actor. And you don't have to be in show business to get to appreciate what he was able to pull out of these people.
Right.
Well, I also think everything was so solidly written. I had a book of his scripts, and they were sort of, some scripts are kind of actor proof. They everything is on the page. All you got to do is get somebody in there to say the lines, and it's going to be brilliant.
Yeah.
So I love
everybody
that
loved work. Yep, and everybody loved working with him too. People were just lined up and just really, really wanted to work with him. That was really well done. And then there was a number of other shows from that era that I really liked. I liked I kind of like to watch sometimes and just compare shows from the late 60s to the early 70s, because that was a huge transition in television at that time. We went from The Farm to like real life New York that was having its problems at the time. You didn't have you had Andy Griffith where they're worried about getting an ice cream cone. And then they would really get into the things like Archie Bunker and even Barney Miller, where they were talking about they were able to kind of make a comedy out of real situations in the city. I mean, how long was Gomer Pyle in the Marine Corps, and you didn't hear Vietnam mentioned once on that show?
Gosh,
I actually do respect that. It's the same thing with MASH, because MASH was going on right at the end of Vietnam, but they said, you know what? We're going to talk about the smaller war, which was Korea, which was still horrible, but we don't want to tear people's wounds so much. And that's, and I respect that with Gomer Pyle, the same thing. They shouldn't have ever talked about it because it's too raw.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a on purpose case that they did that.
But they had. Yep. But if you look at like Car 54 versus Barney Miller.
Oh yeah.
Barney Miller made kind of a comedy out of their the people that they were arresting and everything, but you never saw anybody on Car 54 that was mentally ill get arrested.
No.
Or even though they made a comedy out of it, they did bring up that there was an issue there. You know? So I kind of like watching comparing those things, and I love. I have like this big collection in my mind of that guys and that lady actors these
Mhm.
people that you can follow through the years, like the character actors that pop up in everything.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe one day I'll be that guy. Who knows?
I love
If I get
character
enough,
actors.
yeah, if
Character,
I get
yeah.
enough, I could be like that guy. And I enjoy that sort of thing too. I guess you could say I kind of geek on that. The heavy metal. Um, uh,
Well, and
what
you
else?
you are
Old
in a band, right?
Yes, I'm in an acoustic duo right now. We're sort of a comedic. We open for people and we do small stage stuff. We're not really a full band.
Those are the funnest
Um,
bands. Sorry, they
yeah,
are.
yeah.
There's
And we do perform at comedy nights, open mics, that sort of thing. Not as much lately because I've been busier with murder mysteries and acting, but and podcasting. But we get out probably about 5 or 10 times a year where we're asked. We're not really pursuing a lot of work right
Mhm.
now, but we kind of go where we're asked. We figured if somebody wants to have us there, they're going to like us as compared to going out
Yeah.
somewhere raw and having to win over a new audience. So
So
that's kind of how we do it. Yeah.
let me ask this: you said you have it's a comedy themed duo.
Yes. Yes.
So what's your subject material? Do you write that? I love the comedy. I love comedy music, but it's something I could never break into because I'm not funny when I write. So
Oh, okay. Sure.
I'm funny
true.
looking, but that's about
No,
it.
no, Dub,
Yep.
you're just kind of funny by accident.
A
Huh?
lot of it is.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, a lot of it is it's based on real life experiences,
Hmm.
based on things I've observed. A lot of it is a little more Baltimore and neighborhood centric. So
Mhm.
sometimes people from out of town aren't going to get it, but people in Baltimore are going to know the different suburbs and everything.
Yeah.
And when we have one song called Perry Hall Mustache, and it's about people who get bothered. It's about those guys who bother women on the internet all the time. They become face
Trolls.
friends
Yeah.
with somebody, and they not so much bothering them as a troll, but they start sending the below the belt pictures and the
Mhm.
If
and
you haven't
while they're
experienced one of these, everyone's experienced at least one of these.
Oh yeah.
yeah, right. So people that they do it whether they're married or not. They send these pictures around and they just completely bother women. But the one thing that a lot of women told me when people were doing it to them, they were all from Perry Hall and they all had bad mustaches. So I kind of wrote this song about that. I had another one called 36 and Dating Again, which was kind of about the silliness of dating while I was going through my first my divorce after my first marriage,
Mhm.
and how Murphy's Law often shows up, and dates get ruined and silly, crazy things happen on dates all the time. And we had some other ones, just kind of about observational humor, things that went on in neighborhoods, kind of neighborhood lore.
Yeah.
Not really about real people, but
Mhm.
I know where I guess we're not supposed to like mention Cosby anymore, but you know how Cosby had Weird Harold and he had
Mhm.
Fat Albert, but who knew how real those people were?
Right.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that. With I have characters, but they're not really based on anybody real. But they do pop up in different songs and things
Yeah.
from time to time. So
Well,
we
there's
do
so
That
that.
sounds like
Yeah.
fun. That sounds like a really
Yeah,
fun
yeah.
band.
And then we
There's
banter with the crowd, and we mess with people all the time, and then some songs are just disgusting. I have one about head lice
Oh
and
Ew.
gosh.
how when we were when I was a kid in the '70s in school, there was no privacy. The teacher would be up there teaching, and the nurse would just come in with tongue depressors and go kid to kid and look for lice.
Oh.
And
Whoa.
if you if you had them, they would say, Mrs. Norton, Betty over here has lice. We're going to take her to the nurse's
Who's been
office. And of
around
course,
her?
yeah, I know.
Oh.
And of course, it's bad. And I mean, when I was colorblind, they found out I was colorblind when I was a kid.
Mhm.
That was like a big cootie thing, ooh, you have cooties, you're colorblind. Don't touch
Oh
him.
wow.
I mean,
You
then
went
if
to a
you
rough
really have
school.
cooties,
Jeez.
Yeah,
oh
right?
yeah, oh
It's
yeah,
Baltimore.
oh
It's those Baltimore kids.
yeah, yeah. So Yeah, but there was no HIPAA. There was no, yeah, I see a friend. Um, and there was no HIPAA, no privacy back
Mhm.
then. I took my colorblind test with like 3 other kids, and it was when you went to look and look at the circles with the numbers in them.
Yeah.
Oh,
I couldn't
yeah.
Oh
see,
Yep.
yeah,
and
I still know those. How
I can't
colorblind are
see
you?
any of them.
You're
I'm
completely
mostly
colorblind?
yes. I
Hmm.
forget. My wife actually just got me a pair of glasses that can kind of correct it.
I've seen
So,
those.
yeah, and they do work. They do work. I I think it's called, the type of color blindness I have is, I think it's called, it begins with a D. I think it may be called Duvian or something like that. I'm probably
I
saying
would
the
have
wrong
no
word.
idea if you were lying or not.
But but in other words, greens, the green that I see looks washed out compared to the green that everybody else sees.
Okay.
And then red also looks kind of washed out. It's
Your
like when I was
driving must be
driving down
tough.
the road. Well, I see red, but it's like when I had those glasses on and I was driving and somebody put their brake lights on, it was like red, and
Nice.
and I can see the changes in leaves a lot more a lot more vividly
Now that
now.
you have those
Yeah.
glasses.
Yeah. But it was like I could never see those numbers in the dots when and now when I put the glasses on and I look at them, I can see them perfectly. But I just
Wow.
could never see it. It's just like a whole bunch of dots, and I'm like, I mean, it's not like I see it like gray and black and white or anything,
Yeah.
but I do
Mhm.
see color. It's just
So
I see
everything's just
certain
kinda
types.
washed out?
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
always been
It's
really fascinating with me, the whole colorblind thing, because
Yeah.
mhm,
I don't know if the green that I see is the same green that everybody else sees.
mhm,
It's that's why some people might like colors that other people don't like or whatever. I don't
Mhm.
know,
mhm,
but that's just something I've always found really oddly fascinating, and I don't know
mhm.
why.
I
I
could
you know,
never
I
be a pilot.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I could never work for the phone company back in the day when they had those big 256 pair cables.
Oh, gee, probably better anyway.
Yeah, the service would be even worse than it was.
So let me ask this. I want to kind of transition a little bit and talk about the Foul Players. Is it
Uh-huh.
network or is it podcast? I'm sorry.
The Foul Players Radio.
Radio. Okay.
Yep.
I've listened to about 10 or 15 of your episodes.
Oh,
How do you
great.
get the vast amount of guests that you get? You have, I know Bruce Valanche was a big one you just had on.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you go through your catalog, you will see there are people that you definitely know and want to hear. How do you get all these guests? It's really interesting.
I met a publicist from LA. His name is Steve Joyner, who has worked with a lot of these folks. He does a lot of booking of people, like a lot of the crowd that I've had on, like some of the older celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
He books them at a lot of the cons and the fests
Gotcha. Yeah.
and the those events where they go and sign autographs. And he also books people on podcasts and talk shows and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. So he has a lot of clientele. And we met each other, and he listened to what I was doing, and he liked it.
Nice.
And he feeds me guests, and then I interview them and publicize them and everything, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how it worked. And then other people were just people that I knew from the region that I come from. I
Yeah.
spent a lot of my time in Maryland. I did a lot of my band playing and stuff like that, like in the Maryland, Baltimore, D.C., New York corridor.
Mm-hmm.
Not that much in Philly, but a little bit there. But it was
Yeah.
mostly Baltimore and D.C. So a lot of the folks that I know are from either doing theater or playing music in that region too. So
And
that's where a
Foul
lot of those
Players
guests came from.
Radio, that was established as part of a theater community that you were with, isn't that correct?
Yes. My murder mystery company is called the
Mm-hmm.
Foul Players of Perryville.
Ooh,
And
tell us more about your murder mystery company.
oh, okay, sure. I bought the company. I've been a performer in the company for about 2 or 3 seasons. And the fellow who owned it before, his name was Herb Otter. He
Mm-hmm.
decided he wanted to go do something else.
Great
He was
name.
going to get into some recording and video production. And so he sold me the company, and I bought it, and I maintained a lot of the people that were with it, but I did change the name to the Foul Players of Perryville, and Herb still comes and performs with us once in a while. But we call it, it's spelled FOWL because the town I live in, Perryville, Maryland, is right on the Susquehanna River. And we've got all kinds of, we're known for our waterfowl because the river is right where it feeds into the Chesapeake Bay. So we have bald eagles and herons and osprey and about 12.5 types of ducks and geese.
Stuff we don't have in Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah. So I call the group the Foul Players of Perryville. And then I kind of named the podcast Foul Players Radio. You know how like you had Second City and then SCTV. I guess that's kind of what I did, Foul Players Radio. It's the Foul Players of Perryville. And I've had a number of my folks on as guests too. I mean, I have a number of the people that I perform with were in The Wire when that was being filmed here. Another fellow was a puppeteer on local kids shows that
would be an interesting interview.
Yeah. I can get them for you if you want.
We'll talk after.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So what was your? Oh, go ahead. I was just going to ask. So a typical murder mystery for you guys. Is it a dinner? Is it a dinner theater? Is it what would be the experience of going to a Foul Players of Perryville murder mystery?
Well, we perform on boats. There's a number of river boats that are out there with the big paddle wheel in the back, and it's usually served with a sit down dinner. We perform. They have they serve a sit down dinner, and then what we do is we get there, we greet the guests. Sometimes we do a little shenanigans with them or banter, or go to the table and talk to them a little bit. Or not.
As characters or as plants?
In character, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's so much fun.
and then they serve dinner, and then they have once they the waitresses clean up the plates and everything, and then we start the show, and then the show goes about an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes. And then there's usually a little bit of time left at the end for people to go walk around on the boat and have a drink and enjoy the scenery and everything. And it is interactive. I mean, we're performing. We're not doing it on a stage, chrysanthemum style. We're doing it, in the area where the tables are. We're kind of walking through the tables and dropping hints and clues. And then we're also getting the audience involved as well. Because people heckle us and crack on us, and we crack right back.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Like what?
It's usually pretty tame, or somebody will say something like, "Well, I see what you mean by that," or something, or sometimes people will make a zing us or something like that, and we'll zing them right back. But we keep it to where it doesn't get ugly. You
can still control it even if you're letting.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do, and then we have we do the scenes, and then we do the death. The death is usually something silly and absurd, like a tennis racket through the chest, or
I hate it when that happens.
We did one with it's called Dangerous Toys, and it was actually the owner of the company's name was Dan Jarris. He goes, "No, it's not Dangerous Toys. It's Dan Jarris Toys."
I didn't catch that till you said it. I'm an idiot.
And then he ends up dying. Somebody ends up dying with lawn darts in his head. Remember from the 70s, the lawn darts.
I know. I dropped one of those on my toe when I was a kid.
Oh, geez,
those things are weapons.
That doesn't surprise me, Satomi.
That sidewalk had no business being there.
Yeah.
Put that on the floor.
Gosh.
So that was so we do the stories like that, and then we have we do an investigation at the end. Who was it? Was it Professor Plum in the laboratory with the lead pipe, or we kind of have people. We bring everybody out. We do an interrogation and a questioning and an investigation, and then people fill out little slips and they vote. And then we solve it. And then what we do is we look through and we find everybody who guessed correctly. We put all those names in a hat.
Yeah.
And usually they win a prize, like a bottle of wine.
Oh, right on.
Or, something that the boat and we also do them on trains as well. Boats
sounds
and
like a hoot.
trains. Oh, it is. It is. We go all the way out to Western Maryland, out in Cumberland, to do that. To do them on the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad, and it's a beautiful trip through the mountains. So you're going around curves out through the mountains and foliage.
How long are these trips? I'm trying to figure out. And as far as the trip goes, how long is the show in comparison?
Well, usually the evening is about 3 to 3.5 hours. And then we also we get there, we let everybody eat. People get up, they get a drink, then they get to eat. They serve the dinner. Sometimes we perform on the train as they're serving the dinner, because we're usually doing it in 3 cars.
Yeah. So
we're doing the show 3 times. This car, and this car, and then we work our way back.
That's cool.
Yep. So
you don't get bored that way.
No.
And if something's not working, it's easy to make a little adjustment.
Have you ever had anything go terribly wrong?
A couple of times, yes.
Like what?
The first season, we had a volunteer from the audience. We had a bigger cast. Our cast is usually 5. In this cast, it was a little more scripted, and it was 7 or 8 of us, actually.
Wow.
And we actually brought in somebody from the audience that was supposed to be a participant in it. And then when it came time for her part, I looked over and she was gone. And I was like, oh my God, where did she go? And then I happened to look out of the back of the boat, and she was out on the deck smoking. So
for goodness sake.
So I said, okay, hang on, everybody. I'll be right back. So I just ran across the room, weaved through the tables, went out, and I said, come on, lady, you're on. Get in here. So she came in, and then we just played it off, and everybody laughed,
Yeah.
That's the thing with these, is that they're all improv, too.
Okay.
They're all improv. There's a storyline, but no script.
Okay, so you have a basic structure and go from there.
So you like our show, yeah.
Right, yeah. And so we have, we do it that way, and so that way you can't screw up. As long as you just got to remember what you do not give away yet, as far as clues and things like that.
And is the same person the murderer every night?
No.
No, you mix it up.
Well, in certain plays it is. We've got a couple of dozen shows that we do. We've got like Dangerous Toys. We've got another one. Gosh, it's been so long since we did them. I remember what they were about, but I can't remember the titles for some reason.
These almost sound like they're the con artist little scheme, like the pigeon drop or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just your different. Yeah, it's your different kind of play at things. No, that's got to be a lot of fun. Now,
it is.
Now, going back to the foul player's name, I remember when I first heard that, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a really interesting show. I was expecting you to be sitting around talking to a lot of, and this isn't meant as a bad thing, but like more local actors and just kind of, and that's what it really has, that feeling of you're just sitting down after a play and talking to somebody. It feels like that a lot on your show, which is really a lot of fun.
Good. Yeah, thanks,
so, but what is it about the podcast bug that bit you?
I like to talk to people, and I mean, one thing that I noticed was that when I started doing theater, and I kind of got into doing theater by mistake about 10 years ago. I was always a musician and stuff, but I was starting to look around, even as a musician. We'd be playing open mics, and we'd be in there with a bunch of 19-year-olds, and there were people that were coming in and playing, bringing their acoustic guitars in. And these guys were the big dogs on campus. I mean, there were some bands that were in Baltimore that were regionally. They were just like the Rolling Stones in this region, But, now, 35 years later, the band's been broken up for a while. They're not being played on local radio anymore. And to these kids, that's just some old guy getting up and playing his guitar at open mic. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I wanted to do was kind of create an oral history of performing in the DC, Baltimore, Maryland area
Yeah.
because, I mean, there's a lot of bands around here, like, the Ravens, that was spelled with, it's VYNS instead of like the football team now.
Yeah.
That was around in the 70s and 80s. We had Crack the Sky. We had Face Dancer. They may not mean anything to you guys
I don't know. I
outside
love
of
that
this
name.
area.
Face Dancer. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
but these guys, were out there on the road opening
Uh-huh.
for Kansas and Uriah Heep and Styx and Boston. They were out touring with these bands back in those days, and they had songs in movie soundtracks, and
Uh-huh.
they may not have been particularly good in or they may not have been particularly well known outside of this area. But like I said, in Maryland, DC, and Lower Pennsylvania, and Virginia, they were like the Rolling Stones or the Beatles. Everybody loved them. Whenever they played, it was jam packed. They were playing 3 or 4 nights in a venue whenever they would come around because it was just so hard to get tickets. And so I kind of wanted to create an oral history of people like that. There had been people that were the news anchors on the Baltimore and Washington stations.
Yeah.
That everybody turned to for the news. Before Walter Cronkite, you had the local news, and they had these folks on, and a lot of them had been had gotten away from being the anchors on the news, but they were still doing local radio, or people that had been on the radio here for years that are now retired. But they were household names at one point, and I just wanted to kind of do something so they could tell the story of their journey, and it was archived somewhere that people, if anybody wanted an oral history of these things from this region, and the thing is now that I've moved on to getting some more national acts in, these people are treasures, and they are a big part of our entertainment heritage. I mean, I had Carl Gottlieb on my show. He's known mostly for Jaws. He wrote the screenplays for Jaws and everything.
Okay.
But he was also the head writer for the Smothers Brothers. He wrote for Flip Wilson.
Wow.
He wrote TV specials for George Burns.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, these people's stories need to be told. Bruce Valanche was on, and Bruce Valanche not only was on Hollywood Squares,
Center Square.
but Center Square. But Bruce Valanche also wrote the Star Wars special in the 70s. He wrote for Donnie and Marie. He wrote the Paul Lynde Christmas special, which is absolutely legendary.
He wrote the Star Wars Christmas special?
Life Day, yes.
Or the Star Wars...
The Christmas special.
The Christmas special. I think that's the only one that was ever done.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Life
Day.
Day.
Star Wars special, yeah.
Yeah, that one is infamous.
Yes. So, I mean, he wrote, and that was, I know I was in my PJs with a bowl of popcorn watching it when I was a little kid. So, I think these people's stories need to be told, and they should be there where people can hear them.
Yeah.
Not that I'm the Smithsonian or anything, but maybe one day I was thinking of sending my stuff over to the Maryland Historical Society.
Yeah.
So they have
it. So they have it. And then who knows, maybe, I don't know if a lot of this stuff is somewhat well known. But, maybe someday somebody would want to archive it.
I love your passion with this. This is what makes me have more faith in the whole podcasting community. I think that is where people need to be. This is awesome to me. And the reason why you're doing it, and that's really the reason why we're all doing it, but we may not realize it. You've really put it into words like, well, it's archiving history. We don't talk to our grandparents like we used to talk to our grandparents. They give us stories. This is fantastic. Go ahead.
And I'm also doing one actually not available to the public, but with my family.
Oh, wow.
I just had my father talk for a couple of hours about, growing up in the Sparrows Point section of Baltimore, which was a huge steel town where people lived in the town around the steel mill, and they had the company store, and they had all those things. growing up. And just one more thing about Foul Players Radio too. I've also had my manager on. I've had some people that are involved in casting.
Yeah.
So some of my episodes are meant to be educational as well. Educational, saying that if anybody is interested in pursuing acting, here's what's expected of you at auditions. Here's what a manager expects of you. Here's what you need to do to be able to get managers and to get auditions, and what your headshots should be like. So there is plenty of information out there that people can use, for stage moms, or because there's information too. And I even had Scotty Schwartz, the kid who from the Christmas Story, had his tongue stuck to the pole.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
yes.
he was telling. I had him on a couple of weeks ago, and he was also talking about some things that child stars should be aware of. He was actually the president of a group called A Minor Consideration for a number of years that was started by some child actors. I forget the boy's name that was on the Patty Duke show, or not the Patty Duke show, the Doris Day show. And a lot of things. There were a number of things that were not so good for child actors over the years, so they've become an advocate to try to change those things.
Which is fantastic.
And making sure that they get tutored, and that they do have school, and that they can't make these kids film 12 or 15 hours a day, and certain conditions and certain levels of pay, and also kind of telling parents what to look out for, because it's kind of an unsaid thing, but from a number of child stars out there, there's some people in this industry that aren't so good.
No.
Well, there's the majority, from what I understand. I mean, I haven't heard a whole lot of kids' stories like, "Hey, this was a great experience. I'm glad I did it."
Right.
Well,
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And of course, there are exceptions. That rule, I'm not, saying everybody, but you don't hear a whole lot of happy child stories afterwards.
Well, any working child in any industry, you make them grow up awfully quick.
I had my kids can start working when they're 14 at a paper route, or 16 when they get a regular job. That's
that's it. That's
just me.
I'm curious, Mike, have you ever had a guest that really stood out to you, like something that really stuck with you?
Well, the one thing that blows me away is the fact that a lot of these folks are kind enough to be willing to spend time with me. So I'm not Larry King. I'm not Eddie Trunk. I'm not like sweeping the nation here or anything. But, gosh, let me see here.
I'm going to put you on the spot. So
yeah. Well, the fact that Satomi, the fact that you were willing to come on. You're on Broadway. You're a legitimate actress. That you were willing to come by, and Georgianne introduced us. Let me see here. A number of authors. I just had a fellow named Gregory Mank come on, and he has written book after book about old Hollywood. And we just did a special that I'm going to release this week.
Yeah, you got to get him talking to Courtney.
Yeah, we'll talk afterwards if you like to. He just wrote. We did a whole special, and he talked about all the inside stories about the 1930 Frankenstein and Dracula, and he knows. He's interviewed Bela Lugosi's family.
Oh wow!
He's interviewed. He interviewed the little girl that was in Frankenstein.
Awesome.
He's interviewed all these folks and done so much research, and just put a book out last year about Colin Clive, who played Dr. Frankenstein. And so he knows all that stuff inside and out, and has researched it for over 40 years, and just has so much knowledge about that. Larry Hankin was a great one. He's got a lot of story. Again, Carl Gottlieb was another great one too. It's just talking about the Smothers Brothers, behind the scene of the Smothers Brothers, and working with Steve Martin and Rob Reiner and Mason Williams and Pat Paulson, and all the stories from that. Steve Stoliar, I had him on. He wrote a book called My Raised Eyebrows, My Years Inside of Groucho's House. He was Groucho Marx's personal assistant.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
The
wow.
last 3 years he was alive. And he basically was in there. It's a long story. I don't know how much time we have. But
We're almost out.
Okay, so
sorry about
So you
that.
can check it out on Foul
Steve-
Players Radio. You can check out
Mhm.
all of these episodes.
So,
and the thing is, whenever he referred to Groucho, or if he quoted Groucho, he would also impersonate Groucho, and it was dead
Amazing.
on. You know,
Nice.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. Yeah.
we actually do have to cut off because we're on the time limit thing. However, I do want you to talk about where to find the Foul Players, and I want to give you an encouragement on something, just because this is when you're talking. You never know who's listening, and you never know what your interview is going to mean to somebody else, both the person being interviewed and other. And I think you're doing a fantastic job on that. I just wanted to say thank you for it more than anything else.
Thank you. Thank both of you.
Thank you so much for coming.
I like I said, I really like what you guys are doing, and I'm glad that you thought of me and had me on. And this is really great, and it's always nice to sit down with some like-minded folks and talk and
it's fun.
Share stories and that sort of thing here. So I can give you my plugs if you like here.
Absolutely.
Please do.
Foul Players Radio, FOWL Players Radio. It's on Buzzsprout as the hosting site.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also find it on Apple Podcasts, Google
iTunes.
Podcasts, all those podcasts, or a Pocket Cast, Castro, Overcast, Castbox.
I think I saw
iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Stitcher.
The catchers will catch you.
yeah, right. Let me see. The Gotham on Netflix. It's season 5, episode 8.
Mm-hmm.
Kimmy versus the Reverend. It's not in the Kimmy Schmidt.
About that. Yeah,
it's not inside the Kimmy Schmidt series.
Yeah,
but it's a separate listing in Netflix. It's called Kimmy versus the Reverend Interactive Special. JG Wentworth, just turn on your TV. It'll pop up sometime.
It does, and it's on YouTube.
Yeah. Let me see what else here. And I have a Michael Spedden page on Facebook.
Okay.
I also have a Foul Players Radio page on Facebook. I have a Foul Players of Perryville page on Facebook. I have a website called foulplayersofperryville.com with not much information on it this year. And I'm also on Instagram and Twitter with Foul Players Radio. I think it's at Foul_radio on Twitter, but I don't know how to use Twitter that well yet. And it's also
stay away from Twitter. I post when we drop a show, and that's about it.
That's
240 characters of high blood pressure.
I've seen that, and then Instagram too. And I was thinking of I was going to see if MySpace is still around and maybe do something on there.
The answer is no.
No. Okay.
No. I still check my MySpace. Shut up. No, I don't.
I mean,
I don't even know my code anymore.
as it is, all of the young people I know are like, Facebook's for old people.
I'm like, yeah, I was on MySpace. I was on Friendster.
Oh my gosh, you just dated yourself.
Woo! I am.
Yep.
So that was a great show. Thank you so much for appearing with us, Michael.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
And Satomi, and as you all know, keep on geeking on and check out Michael's pages. It's totally worth your time. Check out his podcast. I listen to it. You should too.
You have been listening to the latest episode of the iHeart Geek Show. Make sure you visit our website at www.iheartgeekshow.com. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you check us out on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And keep on geeking on to all of you geek rock stars.